Indiana. And Rev, the video I played before the end of the break kind of gave away, but this week, the 50th anniversary of the fight between Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier, the first fight in Madison Square Garden called the Fight of the Century.
Right.
Muhammad Ali had been in exile for 3 years before this. He had just recently come back. And at this point, Joe Frazier was the heavyweight champion because he had taken the title away from Ali. And, you know, I think most people, especially people listening to this show, know about the narratives that were going on, where Muhammad Ali was representing the counterculture, the radicals,
Hmm.
people in the Black Power movement, while Joe Frazier was. Here's the thing: Joe Frazier was not Uncle Tom,
No.
not by any means. He actually helped Muhammad Ali out when Muhammad Ali was in exile. He donated money to Muhammad Ali's cause, and Ali dogged him anyway. And I love Muhammad Ali. I think he's the greatest heavyweight of all time. But I do think that there he was wrong in how he did Frazier. But this fight happened on a closed circuit and free television. It was watched by a record 300 million people worldwide.
But it's a funny thing about that because Ali talked about his relationship with Frazier later on,
Right.
and he said he actually respected Frazier
Yeah.
greatly,
Yeah.
and he bore Frazier no ill will whatsoever.
Right.
But Frazier took very personally
Yes.
the things that Ali had said about him.
I think you would too. I mean,
Yeah,
calling people Uncle Toms,
yeah,
especially back then, was a really
yeah. And Ali admitted that he was doing it to boost the fight, increase interest in the fight.
mhm,
But in actuality, he respected Frazier
right.
immensely,
Right.
and he felt bad about the fact that their relationship was the way it was.
Yeah. Yeah. See, Muhammad Ali, man, a lot of people don't know this. Muhammad Ali got his persona from Gorgeous George, the professional wrestler.
Yeah.
Muhammad Ali was a lifelong fan of professional wrestling, was involved in WrestleMania 3. I think he was the referee of the main event. He, was involved in wrestling events all the time. He grew up learning to use what they use in professional wrestling, the acting and the sort of drama, and bring that to fighting. Whereas Joe Frazier was just a fighter. He's
Right.
like, and he wasn't about to let you say all this stuff about him and disrespect him in that way. And but yeah, this fight was watched by 300 million people, a record 27.5 million people in England, about half of the British population. It was watched by 5 million people in Italy, millions in Korea, everywhere else. But the real impact of this fight, uh, the fallout, the kind of political fallout, was that the fight provided cover for an activist group called the Citizens Commission to investigate the FBI. And it allowed them to successfully pull off a burglary at the FBI office in Pennsylvania, in Media, Pennsylvania, which exposed COINTELPRO. It exposed the COINTELPRO operations that included illegal spying on activists involved with the civil rights and anti-war movements, including Muhammad Ali.
Uh-huh.
So, ironically, Muhammad Ali's fight actually distracted the FBI agents at the FBI office. They were so enthralled watching Muhammad Ali fight that these activists broke into the FBI offices during the fight and stole hundreds of files that exposed that the FBI had financed, armed, and controlled extreme right-wing groups of former members of the Minutemen and anti-communist paramilitary organizations, helping it to transform into a group called the Secret Army Organization that targeted group activists and leaders involved in the anti-war movement, using both intimidation and violence. They used covert operations against domestic political groups from its inception. Okay, from 1956 until 1971. They In 1969, leaders of the Black Panther Party were specifically targeted by this COINTEL program and neutralized by being assassinated, imprisoned, publicly humiliated, or falsely charged with crimes Some of the Black Panthers who were directly affected by this were Fred Hampton, who was murdered by the FBI and well, the Chicago police, and J. Edgar Hoover. We talked about that story a few weeks ago. Um, Mark Clark, who was also there with Fred Hampton. Geronimo Pratt, whose nephew is actually Quabena, Paul Pratt, who's on these airwaves all the
Right.
time with the Clitter Airwaves um, program that he runs, where he tries to clean up the culture. Common tactics used by COINTELPRO were perjury. They actually got FBI agents and people involved to lie under oath, witness harassment, witness intimidation, withholding of evidence. J. Edgar Hoover uh, issued directives concerning COINTELPRO, ordering the FBI agents to expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, or otherwise neutralize the activities of these movements, and especially their leaders. Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy personally authorized some of these programs. Now that blew my mind, giving written approval for limited wiretapping of Martin Luther King Jr.'s phone on a trial basis for a month or two. Hoover extended the clearance so his men were unshackled to look for evidence of any areas of Dr. King's life that they deemed unworthy. I mean, this is the more you learn about what COINTELPRO, what, what the type of things they were doing in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. They began to monitor groups like the Southern Christian Leadership Council, Bayard Rustin, Stanley Levison. Obviously, we talked about Martin Luther King. After the 1963 March on Washington, J. Edgar Hoover singled out Martin Luther King as a major target of COINTELPRO. Under pressure from Hoover to focus on King, one of the men who exposed the program wrote, "In light of King's demagogic speech at the March on Washington, we must now mark him now, if we have not done so before, as the most dangerous Negro of the future in this nation from the standpoint of communism, the Negro, and national security." After this, the FBI systematically bugged Dr. King's home and his hotel rooms. They were they had singled him out as the most important leader of the civil rights movement. They actually sent Dr. King in 1964 a suicide package that contained audio recordings through tapping his phone and placing various bugs in hotel rooms over the years. The tapes were a series of Dr. King's sexual indiscretions combined with a letter telling him that there is only one way out for you. You better take it before your filthy, abnormal, fraudulent self is bared to the nation. King was subsequently informed that the audio would be released to the media if he did not acquiesce and commit suicide prior to accepting his Nobel Peace Prize. When Dr. King refused to satisfy these coercion tactics, they actually commenced a media campaign offering the surveillance transcript to different organizations, including Newsweek and Newsday. Even after he died, in 1969, they attempted to expose Martin Luther King. Like, I mean, we're running out of time here, but wow, Ref. Like this program was something.
Amazing that they thought that one man had so much of an impact. They would
Right,
stop at nothing.
right.
And in reality, he was a person of significance. No way he wasn't. But the movement was bigger than one person.
It always was, right? But
Because the movement was essentially local.
mm,
It was not something that was directed from some
mm,
central location.
no internet back then.
It was people in their various communities addressing very real issues
Hmm.
that kept them from achieving all that they should be able to achieve as American citizens. That's what this has always been about.
Hmm.
And it flusters me that people don't recognize that. This isn't about uh, us coming here as aliens and demanding something, you know, for because we're special. It's us as being U.S. citizens from at the very least the period of the establishment of the 14th Amendment. There was from that moment on there was no longer a question whether or not we were citizens. The
Mm-hmm.
only question would we be allowed to function as citizens, or would we always be like Roger Maris with his 61st home run, citizen with an asterisk?
Right.
And it took them 150 years to even get to the point of saying, okay, fine, we'll let we will treat you as citizens without an asterisk.
Mm.
But you don't undo 150 years of two-tiered citizenship in a day or a few months or even a decade.
Mm-hmm.
And one man by himself could not accomplish what needed to be accomplished.
Right.